How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another supporters club. Hopefully you've caught up with the last one with Chris Hudson and Curtis Shaw. We took a look back at the results and performances leading up to the international break. This one, I'm going to get the panel's thoughts and feelings right now as we sit just behind Tottenham on goals scored in the league, ahead of Man City and ahead of Liverpool. It's all tight at the moment, but we're also going to take a look forward at our Premier League games coming up, a couple in the Champions League and the Carabao Cup before the next international break in November. Make sure you're here, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you're subscribed, people. Time to introduce the panel. First and foremost, we've got Dan Potts in the building. Been a little while since you've been on supporters.
As well. Cheers, bro.
James has got everyone clapping.
Everyone, it's like contagious now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone's
I'm jumping
clapping,
on that.
How are you, man? You good?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. I'm buzzing still. I can't lie. I'm still buzzing after beating Man City, and it was a perfect time for a nice international break to chill now, man. But,
100%.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Both international breaks coming off the back of wins against teams from Manchester. Last one, 3-1 against United. This one being the Man City win. But we've also got Laurie in the building as well. What are you saying, Laurie?
I'm good, man. Likewise with my friend Danny. I'm excited about the win. It wasn't, let's be honest, it wasn't the greatest game. I think that's fair to say. But the result and the fact that we kept a clean sheet, and the thing that I took from that game is that that's literally blown open the title race. So the rest of the Premier League should actually be thanking Arsenal.
Where did you predict Arsenal to finish at the beginning of the season?
I've got to be honest, I predicted that we'd finish second, but I did say I think it'd be a very close run thing.
Has that thought process changed now we beat City, or are you still wary of?
I'm still wary of City. I've still got a lot of respect for City. You've got to have with the players and the manager, and just look at their form and the way they played throughout the years. However, I do think, and Sunday confirmed it for me, that we'll be genuine. And when I say genuine, I mean like pushing them all the way, maybe even down to the last weekend. It could even be that close.
Dan, what's your thoughts? So beginning of the season, what did you predict? Second?
Yeah, I did predict second before a ball was kicked, man, and I'm not changing that. I don't think that weekend just gone has proved to me that we're better than Man City. I think that when you look at Rodri and De Bruyne to be added to that side, takes them to a new level. Yeah. I'm actually quite surprised that Pep Guardiola didn't replace Rodri in terms of cover, because if he thinks the drop-off is too big from Calvin Phillips, I'm surprised that he didn't replace him or upgrade on him, because we've said the same about Mikel Arteta. If you don't trust Reece Nelson and Smith Rowe, why didn't you go and buy somebody else? It's the same works for him with Rodri, because for me, Kovacic playing there ain't really the same. And I think that the big, most important player, I think now, one of, is definitely Rodri. So there's best CDM in the world, man, isn't he? Let's 100%. Be real. So I still go second. I think Man City are unreal, man. I'm not going to change. Pep Guardiola's proved every season, man. You'll get it right, so.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't necessarily changed my opinion, but if asked for a prediction now, I might flip it around and say Arsenal top.
Oh, wow, really?
Is that because I think Arsenal are better than City? No, I don't. But I think the mental hurdle that we've just gone over with the whole beating Manchester City, on top of beating Liverpool last year, winning games away from home against Chelsea, United over the last few years, Tottenham last year, those mental hurdles needed to be,
Yeah, you're right. It's another box ticked, isn't it?
100%. Yeah. Obviously now the last box that's ticked before the Premier League title, not necessarily before, because you don't have to tick these last two boxes to win the Premier League title, but Anfield and Etihad, it'll be nice to get 3 points of both of them, if not one of them this season. We know how the title race dwindled last year off the back of that. Anfield 2-0 up, 2-2. So I'm looking at those next two fixtures somewhere along the way. I don't even know when they're coming.
I see a stat yesterday that said apart from Luton, because we haven't obviously played them yet, Arteta's beaten every team now, at least once.
Yeah, that's true.
That we've played.
That's true.
So mentally, as a manager, he knows that he can beat every team that he gets to face. I'd like to think we can beat Luton. So now that we get that kind of hurdle, I think mentally that was so important. No matter how we played, no matter what the performance was like, no matter who was out, for me, I look at who was on the pitch and what the manager did, and I thought it was spot on, man. I have to say big up to him. I thought he was great at the weekend.
100%. And when you look at our results across last season, I mean, we're 8 games in now, but across the next 30 games, if we match up the results last season against the teams, I'm pretty sure we win the league. Because we've already turned around that loss away to Everton last season. We beat them this season. We've turned around the loss against City at the Emirates. We beat them. Yes, we've dropped points against Tottenham and Fulham at the Emirates. But City have also lost back-to-back games against two teams that they beat away from home last season, Wolves and Arsenal. So that's looking good at the moment. Anything to worry about with that lot down there? Top of the league at the moment?
I do think they need to be taken seriously because they're clearly a much better team this season than they were last season. Different manager, different mindset, different way they play football.
Seriously, in what capacity?
In terms of, okay, so what I'm saying is Spurs, along with Newcastle, along with Brighton, Liverpool and all that, there's going to be teams that's taking points off each other at the top end of the table, more so than previous years, I think. So I think, plus they've not got European football to worry about, so they'll be able to make a concerted effort.
No Carabao Cup.
So that's true. So yeah, they will be a force to be reckoned with, but hey.
We'll see, Dan. Dismissive?
Yeah, listen, Spurs have got one game a week until January, right? Until the FA Cup. So, of course, people are going to look at them now and say that they should be all right in terms of keeping their players fit. My problem is Turkish. Maddison's taken them to a new level. We know he gets injured. Their backup for him is Lo Celso, right? Bissouma has been phenomenal, absolutely outstanding for them. The backup for them is Højbjerg, Oliver Skip. And Eric Dyer can't wait for one of these guys to get injured because he's back in the team. So that's what I'm looking at. There's 3 players there. We're not talking about 13 players getting injured. We're talking about literally 2 or 3, and they're back to players that ain't good enough. So I don't think title race. I definitely think top 4 is on the cards for them. They should get it 1 game a week. I think their transfer window has probably been one of the better ones so far with Van der Ven, who I think's been solid, outstanding. You know, Spurs going about Romero like he's better than Saliba. Why don't they not talk about this guy? He was better in the game against us, by the way, Van der Ven. So for me, he's been fantastic.
He's less error prone as well.
Yeah, that spine is starting to come together
Maddison,
at Tottenham.
top sign.
Maddison, Bissouma, Van der Ven now looking towards the spine. And lastly, what I'll say is I think the manager's been outstanding. I think Postecoglou, I hate it, but he's likeable. You know? He's not a Tottenham manager, is he? Do you know what I mean? The Contes, the Mourinhos, they kind of suited that kind of thing. They don't care who they step on.
The one thing I would say about Spurs, though, and I don't want to sound churlish to Spurs fans, but I do genuinely think that they've used up quite a bit of luck so far this season.
Agreed.
I know they say you make your own luck, and yes, they played well, but the Sheffield United game, the last-minute winner, the Liverpool game, even the game against Luton, you could argue that Spurs should have been a couple of goals to the good in the first 10 minutes, but then Luton had a spell in that game where they created a lot of chances, and for me, Adebayo, that's probably the miss of the season. How he's not scored that is...
Even against us, I know they deserve the point, but we kind of give it to him. Jorginho passes that back to Saliba and we win 2-1. Do you know what I'm saying? So they have actually got...
They've rode their luck.
Yeah, they have.
They played well, but at some point that luck and those decisions from the referee, when that all starts to balance out, different story.
All right, let's look at our next 4 Premier League games before the next international break. We've got Chelsea away, Sheffield United at home, Newcastle away, Burnley at home. So already, the 2 home fixtures, I don't even need to ask. We expect 6 points out of those 2 home fixtures.
Yeah, but we said that when we played Fulham.
We did. But at the end of the day, you know, we have to put that behind us and say Sheffield United and Burnley, Tottenham have got wins over them. They're at the bottom end of the table. Surely that's 6 points. I'm more interested in Chelsea away and Newcastle away. But if we look overall, 12 points up for grabs from now until the next international break. Dan, looking at those teams, how the fixtures are set up, out of 12 points, what do you think is the bare minimum expectation?
10 points out of 12 for me.
3 wins and a draw.
Because you can drop points at St James's Park. You can drop points at Stamford Bridge, but the way they're playing, be very disappointed if we did. I do think that with the lack of firepower at Chelsea, that we could be okay with them. The problem with Chelsea is they're now just starting to get some goals. And I know that they scored against Burnley and they've scored against, I think, Fulham and Luton, where they've got their goals. But actually, what I don't want to see is a little bit of momentum or some confidence boost from them. So I'm glad that the international breaks kind of come to a close for that, so that we can have the strong momentum as well. I think for me, the Newcastle one, I hate going there, man, because it's such a bad sort of hostile atmosphere. Last season we controlled the game, and
good.
At a time where we all thought this is going to be a loss because we've thrown it away at Southampton previously, West Ham, etc. And that brings me on nicely to the Sheffield United and Burnley one, because I'm with you, bro. I was like, Southampton, that's 3 points. Let's concentrate on it. We were 3-1 down.
Yeah.
So I can never ever guarantee Arsenal are going to get 3 points. But I am with you in respect of that's a 6 points. If we can't take 6 points at home against those two sides that have got 1 and 3 points so far this season, in the relegation zone, and not a lot of people are talking about Burnley, by the way, who've been poor just because they've got a Man City player as their manager. They've been worse than Luton. They've been below Luton.
Yeah, but the expectation for them was a bit. Not a bit higher, it was higher than Luton.
Yeah, I see people predicting 12th and 13th place for Burnley. Like, do you know what I'm saying? And now it's just gone under the radar that they're 19th, wherever they are.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd say about that is that it would be the worst thing in the world to beat City like the way we did and then drop points to the likes of Burnley and Sheffield United. So we do need to take those games seriously because arguably 2 of our worst performances of the season have come against teams that were supposed home bankers at home. So you look at the Forest game, where we was in control for large spells of that game, gave away a silly goal, and then we were literally hanging on towards the end of that game. And that was 2-1 to us, we won that. The Fulham game, drawing at home in retrospect, that's starting to look like a really poor result. No disrespect to Fulham, but that's the kind of thing that can happen if you take your eye off the ball. So there's no point in beating City and everyone's hooping and hollering and saying, yeah, man, yeah, we're celebrating, and then you go and drop points to Sheffield United and Burnley.
Counterproductive. Well, Dan's gone 10 points. I think I agree with 10 points as the bare minimum. What about you from those 4 fixtures?
I would have to agree. The Newcastle game is obviously the one that sticks out as, seemingly anyway, as the really hard one. But I would caution against thinking that we're just going to rock up at Chelsea and get 3 points because I'm seeing a bit of a momentum shift there. They're starting to win games.
Their underlying
have a bit
numbers
of confidence.
Tell you that they've been better than the results have shown.
Yeah, and Raheem, Sterling and a couple of them other guys are starting to play really well. So it could be, at the time when we play them, it could be a difficult match.
I think 10 points is fair. And I guess as much as we need to be wary of Chelsea, Burnley and Sheffield United, I guess the points dropped aspect of this conversation comes from that Newcastle away game.
Well, everyone's looking at the Newcastle game as the one that we could come unstuck, but it could be a case where we beat Newcastle and don't beat Chelsea, for example. You know what I mean? Because that will be a difficult game, I believe.
It's hard, isn't it? Because what do you want? If we're going to drop 2 points, do you want to beat Newcastle and Chelsea and drop points at home to Burnley? Or do you want to drop points at Stamford Bridge or St James's Park, win the others?
Well, in an ideal world, you want to win all of those games, but I do take your point.
But if we are expecting all of us to drop points somewhere along the lines, I think we could get 12 points. Don't get me wrong.
I do.
And I think if I had to put money on it, I would probably say that we will. But I would say that bare minimum is 10 and you're still okay.
Yeah.
For me, I think that I know that if both teams are at their best, I think that we can beat them all.
Yeah.
But if both teams are at their best and we had to slip up, Newcastle were the ones that could cause us some problems. Because if they're at their best, they're very difficult to beat. And I think Chelsea at their best will be okay.
Yeah.
I think Sheffield United and Burnley, like I've said at the Emirates, will be okay. But Newcastle are the ones because they can come up with a performance. And do you know we beat them last season? They're going to be like, right, okay, they're doing it again. And that's what they're like. And
well, the season before that, they pretty much pulled our pants down in that game.
Yeah.
So,
they destroyed us.
So awful. But I'm looking at that Chelsea game, man. I'm thinking, well, a lot of fans I've spoken to seem to be, we'll go to Chelsea and beat them. Listen, Chelsea are in a decent run of form. They'll be at home. It's the first game after the international break. It's a London derby. They'll be massively up for that game. So we have got to go there with a bit of humility, show them the proper respect, but at the same time, go there and do a professional job. It's not going to be easy. That's going to be a difficult game.
I agree. I think our recent, how a lot of fans will use our recent form there and use that to justify predicting another win or being confident about another win. But my thing is that how many times can we go there and win games in a row? But you're right, we should get the job done regardless of Chelsea's upturn in form, especially if we were looking to challenge City. Champions League now. We've played 2 games. We won the first convincingly against PSV, lost the second against London somewhat surprisingly. We've got back-to-back games against Sevilla now, in between now and the international break, starting with an away fixture, home fixture. Sevilla have drawn their first 2 games.
They sacked their manager, right?
Have they? That's news to me. Maybe, because they have been poor this season.
Yeah. If they've not sacked him, I think there's talk that he could be.
What's the expectation from those 2 games? Is it 6 points? Or knowing that Sevilla have got some heritage in European competition, maybe not the Champions League, but in Europe they tend to set up well. Is 6 points the target here?
It is the target. Whether we'll accomplish that target is...
But what's the expectation?
My expectation is to win every single Champions League game, because that is a Europa League group. Sorry, man, if we can't get through that group, there's problems.
And I was just about to mention the word complacency, and then you said that.
Well, it's true.
I think that when we lost to Lens, there was a degree of complacency seeping through. I could feel it from the fans, and I've got to be honest, I was at a boxing event, so I did see all the game. However, it would appear to me that there was a degree of complacency when we played Lens. Everybody expected us to roll them over, especially in light of the way we dealt with PSV, and then we go there and lose.
I think we've got to separate out, because that complacency from the fans, I guess, is nothing. I think fans, are well within their right to either be very confident about this or dismissive about this team, or because we're just fans. I think it's unacceptable for the players to be complacent. Is that what you think?
Yeah, I mean, they say in sports that there's a thin line between confidence, overconfidence, and complacency.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to have confidence, but when you go a little bit further than that and start thinking that the game is won pretty much before you've played it, that's when problems can set in. And I spoke to Robbie, who went to that Lens game. He said to me that the atmosphere was off the charts.
Yeah.
They were ready for us, man. I mean, they've not been playing well in the league, but when Arsenal turned up, they were ready and waiting. And we perhaps weren't at that level.
Yeah.
And it's fine margins. If you're not quite at it, good teams with good players, they turn up on the day, they've got that little bit of extra motivation than you've got. That can be all it takes.
I'd like to think we learn from that though now, because it's happened early enough for us to have another chance at it, right? So we go to Sevilla. If they think that's hostile, that's going to be hostile too. Wait till you go to the Bernabeu, wait till you go to the San Siro.
Yeah.
If you can't handle Lens away, apologies, but you're going to be in for a shock if you get further into the competition. So for me, they were out of it for 20 years, Lens. They're going to be excitable. They're going to be going for it. They're going to make it as hostile as they can. For me, win our home games. We've got 9 points. And we just have to try and pick up a point somewhere else, and then you're basically guaranteed to go through, whether it be first or second. But I'm going into that game expecting to win every single one. If Sevilla go in there and they're sacking their manager, they ain't playing well. So why are we worried about that? For me, this is Champions League. We wanted to be here. We get knocked out into that Europa League. I'm sorry, man, that is unacceptable.
Be catastrophic.
With that group we've been given,
I think so,
come on, man, Newcastle's group, look at that. And they've got a chance of going through. So if we can't get through against Lens, PSV and Seville, poor. So
you are right, but the one thing I would say, Lens for me was a little warning shot, as if to say, listen, man, you lot are not there yet. Because let's be honest, when we beat PSV 4-0, and the scoreline surprised me. I expected us to win. I wasn't necessarily expecting that we were going to win 4-0. Everyone was hooping, hollering, yeah, man, we're going to stroll this group, easy group, blah, blah, blah. We win this group in good time, we can rest players, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden we go and lose to Lens. And then all of a sudden, that optimism, you've got to scale that back a little bit. Maybe we're not quite as good as we thought we were. We need to humble ourselves a little bit. And we are a good team, but this is a different style of football. We're coming against different teams that, they're going to take us more seriously than their domestic opponents, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, there is an argument, to humble ourselves, because I think at points, maybe the fans as well, the players maybe got carried away with things last season, hence the end of the season and the way it ended. Maybe our mentality wasn't quite built up for a business end of the season challenge against Manchester City. But they also raised the bar. So I don't think it's unfair to say, you've raised the bar, this is the expectation we have on you. With PSV, I predicted a comfortable victory.
What did you predict? Because you're famous for your...
I think I predicted like 3-0 or 3-1.
You predicted we'd beat Spurs. Was it 4-1 or
5-1 I predicted. But that was my other side of the argument.
So this is what I'm saying. No disrespect. To me, the fact that you predicted that kind of shows that maybe you were getting a little ahead of yourself there.
No, but the way I think of it is, if you just take a step back and look at the bigger picture, what should we do against Tottenham at the Emirates, considering we've beaten them every single time for the last however many years, even in our darkest days? What should we do this season against Tottenham? We should smoke them. That's what we should do. What happened is another story. What should we have done against Lens? Smoke them as well. But what happened is another story. I think the players also need to use this, like you said, and learn. They need to use this and know, listen, we haven't done anything yet.
Yeah.
The hard work, you're still very much in the process of that hard work to get over the line in a major competition. And then you kick on again. There's no resting on laurels here. You can't rest on second. You can't rest on being in Champions League. And if we eventually win a Premier League, you can't rest on that either. The whole problem of Arsenal moving into the Emirates is we rested on what we'd done prior. And 20 years later, we are where we are. So
it's also, I think it's fair to say that with the European football, it's a bit more nuanced than Premier League footballs. I think it's a bit more tactical. When I say that, you're coming up against teams that you don't know that well. You may have seen them play on, you're watching the French league and stuff like that, but you're not watching these teams week in, week out. And they can catch you out, man. Like I said, I spoke to Robbie, man. He spoke about the atmosphere of that game and the way the Lens fans and the players and that were so up for it. So when we go to those teams, especially when we go to their ground away, we've got targets on our backs.
Yeah.
So, that can sometimes
got to get
make
used
the
to it
games
quickly.
more. Oh, yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
yeah, 100%.
They got to use it and use it quickly because these are coming thick and fast. Ain't going to be any less hostile there than it is in some of the other grounds. So
100%.
they got to learn from that. The other thing we haven't mentioned, I suppose, is the players that are going to be back now.
Yeah.
Like we come out past this international break, looks like apart from Timber, they're all going to be there.
Yeah,
So
big.
I think for me in the Champions League now, it's going to see how strong are we going in both these competitions because at the moment people are talking about rotation, the importance of rotation with the Carabao Cup still being in it as well. You need a full squad for that, and it looks like we might have that now after the international break. Touch wood, no one else gets injured in that break. But
100%. We need a bit of luck on the injury side because so far this season we've had quite a few injuries to quite a few key players. But you mentioned the last fixture in between now and the next international break, the Carabao Cup tie against West Ham, away from home. Last and probably least of our priorities, but it was a good win against Brentford away from home, in my opinion, with a heavily rotated side.
I was at that game.
What's
Good
the
performance.
expectation against West Ham?
I'm looking forward to that game, man. I mean, you quite rightly said it's probably the least, not probably, it is the least of the priorities. However, it's a trophy that we've not won in God knows how many years, 30 years is it, or something like that?
93, isn't it?
93, yeah.
Yeah, so it's about time we won it. It is a major competition. Okay, it's the least major of the four, but it's still a major competition. And if we're in it, we should try and win it. That's my view. And I went to the Brentford game, sold out, good atmosphere, London
you
derby.
rotate?
Yeah, I would rotate.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same for I would imagine that'll get sold out.
Yeah,
Big game. And let's try and get through it, man. Let's win.
Dan,
Yeah, I want to win the competition.
rotate or go strong? It's
Three or
West
four,
Ham.
3 or 4 changes, not like wholesale changes. And this is what I've tried to compare Pep Guardiola and Arteta in because Manchester City don't go play kids in these competitions. They just rotate 4 or 5 players. And I think for me, in my opinion, we need to win something this year.
Yeah.
Manchester City are favourites for the other 3 competitions. They can't be favourites for this one because they're out of it.
Yeah.
So that means we're favourites for it now, us and Liverpool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if we get through West Ham, they're probably the 2 I don't want to draw, with Liverpool and Newcastle. But otherwise, I fancy our chances against all of them.
Yeah.
I think when we're losing to the oppositions that we've lost to in the last few years,
Southampton,
that's
Brentford,
frustrating me.
yeah.
Forest, Southampton,
Brighton.
and then in the Europa Leagues, Olympiacos, Villarreal. I don't want to be losing to those sort of people.
Lost to Sporting.
Lisbon.
Yeah.
None of these teams we should be fearing, but we're losing to them. I want to see that this year, man.
It's an excellent point, and the thing I would add to that as well is that you're trying to create a winning culture, mentality. So you don't go into these games and think, we're going to play a weakened side. If we go, no. If you look at Pep, when he first came about, he wanted to tick off all of those trophies, and that's what he did. And that's part of building a winning mentality. Winning mentality means you don't switch on and off.
Yeah.
Every game is a must-win game.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't mind us going in there with Trossards and Tomiyasus and Vieiras. What I don't want to see is complete wholesale changes because we'll lose. West Ham will beat us.
Yeah.
They will. And the thing is, West Ham are also going for other competitions this year as well. So it's not like West Ham are all on this. They've got the Europa League as well.
Yeah.
So for me, I fancy us, but I don't fancy us if we're going to go and play kids.
And there's extra bit of fire in there with the whole Declan Rice transfer. Even though it turned out good for both of us, because they've actually invested the money quite well, I'm sure the way a lot of Arsenal fans kind of, you know, talk down to the West Ham fans in the summer, I'm sure the West Ham fans are going to be eagerly anticipating this one. But just to round it off, Carabao Cup, get through. Champions League, minimum 4 out of 6 points. Really, it should be 6. And the Premier League, minimum 10 out of 12 points. And I say really, I think...
If you're going to go for
12,
titles, you've got to be talking in those terms.
Absolutely.
Bare minimum. All right, Dan, love for coming on. Make sure you subscribe to Dan's channel. I'll put it in the description below. Not only is Dan on his own channel, he's also on Lee Judges TV, but I'm sure you not know about it already. And big up Laurie as well, part of the furniture here at AFTV, a big personality. Make sure you subscribe, put the notification bell on, and let me know your expectations in the next 4 Premier League games, the next 2 Champions League games, and our Carabao Cup fixture against West Ham. And we'll touch in again on this, probably with the same panel in November during the next international break. Love for the love, people. Get the likes up to 1,000, and we'll be back again real soon. Peace.